In the past, I've brought you Aston Martins, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Porsches. Today, I'm bringing you this, a Qvale. This is a Qvale Mangusta, which is one of just 284 produced between 2000 and 2002, which makes it probably the rarest car I've ever reviewed. I've borrowed this Mangusta from Rayco Eurospec, a dealer here in Pennsylvania with a lot of crazy and bizarre inventory, including possibly the most bizarre, this thing, which is currently for sale for $34,900. Now, unless you're a huge car nerd, you probably never even heard of this thing, even though it's a low-production Italian exotic designed by Marcello Gandini, the same guy who did the Lamborghini Miura and Countach. So today I'm going to tell you a little bit about it. The Qvale Mangusta was conceived by Alejandro Di Tommaso, who created the famous Di Tommaso Pantera, as a modern-day Di Tommaso. But just before it launched, Di Tommaso pulled out of the project, leaving the Qvale family, who owns car dealerships throughout the United States, to launch the car with their own name. So what exactly is the Mangusta? It's a 4-seat rear-wheel drive convertible, we'll get to that in a second, that much like the Di Tommaso Pantera uses Ford running gear. That means under the hood is a Ford V8, and it's from the Mustang SVT Cobra. And it isn't just under the hood. Look closer and you'll find Ford Mustang window switches, a Ford Mustang headlight switch, Ford Mustang climate controls and climate control vents, a Ford Mustang center console with Ford Mustang cup holders, the Ford Mustang turn signal stalk. There's even a Ford Mustang steering wheel, although it says Mangusta on it. But none of those things are my favorite Ford-related detail with the Mangusta. That honor is split between two pieces. Number one, the key. Now, you have the typical Ford key fob that was on all Ford vehicles at that time. That's normal. But the weird thing is, then on the key itself, they've just removed the Ford logo. Did they place a different logo there? No. They just took the Ford logo off, so you don't know you're using a Ford key. But the thing I like best is the door handles. Now, they've used the Mustang door handles, which makes sense, and so much of the rest of this car is Ford related. The crazy part is the Mustang door handles have a little keyhole in them, but that keyhole placement didn't work with the Mangusta's doors. So they just covered up the keyhole and put the Qvale logo on the Ford keyhole, and then they stuck their own keyhole in the door a little bit further down. Oh, and by the way, all that keyhole stuff, it's just on the driver door. The passenger door doesn't have the keyhole. It only has the logo. So is this thing just a more expensive Ford Mustang? Not exactly. It's actually a unique car with a lot of strange and unusual quirks all on its own. And today I'm going to show you all those quirks, and then I'm going to take the Mangusta out on the road and show you exactly how it drives. As always, for more of my thoughts on all things Mangusta, click the link below to check out my column on autotrader.com/oversteer. One of the strangest quirks is just how nice it is inside. Yeah, there's a lot of Mustang, but almost all the non-Mustang parts look really nice and feel surprisingly good. There's even a stitched leather dashboard and surprisingly supple leather seating. Now here's another crazy thing. Because of that Marcello Gandini designed kink in the door, the window only can roll down this far. Now normally that annoys the hell out of me because when you're driving down the road you can't use the door sill as an armrest because the window's there. But in this car, they actually thought of that. The window only goes down this far, but there's a legitimate armrest on the door. And that way you can rest your arm even with the weird window situation. Another interesting thing about this car, remember how I said it was a 4-seater convertible? Does this look like a 4-seater car? Believe it or not, there are back seats in this car, although they are the smallest back seats I have ever seen in any car ever. Porsche 911 back seats are like Lincoln Town Car seats compared to this thing. There is absolutely no way I am going to fit back here, but I can give it a try anyway, just for comic effect. Also interesting are the mirrors. They're on the fender, not the door. So when you open the door, it just stops before it hits the mirrors because they're fixed in place. Oh, and the wheels. They don't have regular valve stem caps, but rather this. The other interesting thing about the car is it is a convertible, but the top is rather unique. The roof part comes off just like a Targa top. Undo the latches inside the car, lift it off, and stow it in the trunk where it barely fits. Now you have a half convertible, and that leaves just the back part of the top still on the car. Interestingly, it's electronic. Push a button inside the cabin and it comes right down. So that's a little tour of the Mangusta. And now, if you're like me, you have to be wondering, what could this thing possibly be like to drive? Time to find out.
The ride is actually pretty good. It feels pretty stable, considering it's got a lot of Ford Mustang parts. That's surprising to me. Because of all the Ford running gear, I don't feel like this car is tremendously fragile, which is kind of cool. I feel like even though it's got this exotic Italian design and it's one of 284, I feel like I can really kind of push it around and have fun with it. You know, we're sitting here at a lighted idle. It doesn't rumble or shake, which is surprising to me. You know, this is ultimately a 16-year-old car which uses a lot of Mustang parts, including the transmission, engine, and all that. I would kind of think that it would be a little bit less refined, but actually it feels surprisingly refined. And then you look down and you have all this beautiful leather and stitched everywhere. You kind of get transported away from a Mustang. Now that we're out of the shop and we're in the light here, the interior is like actually pretty nice. They use this thick leather and they're stitching everywhere and the color is beautiful. They knew, I think, that they would have to sell against the Mustang. They knew people would come in and say, well, what's better about this than the Mustang? And so one of the things they had to do was make it more special. So they have this Italian designed exterior and they have all this rich leather on the interior, and they were able to tell people it's not just a Mustang. And I don't think that quick to rev, easy to catch the clutch. I love the Mustang engine and stuff because it's just easy. It's easy to service, it's easy to drive. We've all driven Mustangs. It's simple. There's no like, oh, you have to be careful of whatever gear, whatever part of the power band. It's just like the Mustang. You know what you're doing. It's like the Elise and the Toyota engine. It feels very stable on the road, surprisingly. I mean, I came here kind of expecting to be driving like a 2000 Mustang. So it actually feels very different than that. You know, it's interesting. I think this kind of feels more like a touring car than a true, honest-to-God sports car. It handles fairly well, but you're a little bit more removed from the road. It doesn't feel that fast, and frankly, it doesn't feel that precise either, but it does feel pretty comfortable, and it has this rich leather and everything. Handling is definitely more touring car. It's not direct and precise like a Lotus or something really glued to the ground. It doesn't waft. There's no like body roll, and it doesn't feel like it's soft or vague. It feels good through turns. It's very predictable, but it isn't. You never feel like you're driving a Miata. I'm really surprised at how different this car is from the Mustang. It feels like more of a luxurious grand tourer in every way. Not only just the interior and sort of this crazy Italian design, but just on the road, it feels very more composed and stable than the Mustang of this era. For a car that they only made 284 of, and whose details don't come up in Carfax, it says unknown and all this stuff, it actually is a pretty decent car. You'd think that it would be sort of like a joke, like, oh, this Italian company threw together this thing and it's stupid, but it's actually fairly well built. I'm impressed.
There you go. I can now happily say that I've driven a Porsche Carrera GT, a Ford GT, a Lamborghini Murcielago, and a Qvale Mangusta. More importantly, I think we've all learned a lot about this strange, bizarre, exotic Italian car. And best of all, if you ever see one at a car show, you can now walk up to it with confidence and say, I hope he does the roof thing.